giant sort of demonic paper mache rabbit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Artful Conversations. Today, I'm joined by an amazing guest. We have Holliday Howe. She's an amazing musician, and I'm happy to have her on the show today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. That's so nice of you to say.
Oh, yeah, of
How are
course.
you?
I'm great. I'm doing great. I'm happy to interview you. It's been the first
Oh,
interview
good.
episode in a while. I love doing these. You're the first Australian on this show. I want to know, what is one common misconception that Americans hold about Australia, and what's one piece of Australian culture that you would like to share with the less informed?
There's two common misconceptions. That like there's like tons of spiders or snakes and like everything's gonna kill you. Like really no, I think there are a lot of things that will kill you here, but you just like learn to stay away from them. Like if you don't mess with nature, it doesn't mess with you, you know? And it discourages people from visiting, and I really think more people should come and visit because it's so beautiful here, like just naturally amazing. There's another common misconception that like Australian guys are really hot. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. And I think a part of Australian culture, I wish more people knew about like our Indigenous history and our Indigenous culture. Like I think that's
Yeah.
what we as a nation really have to offer. Like this the like longest continuous culture, oldest continuous culture in the world is in Australia from our Indigenous population. And people should come and learn about that and how they lived off the land, that symbiotic relationship that didn't take too much. I think there's so much that like a Western society could learn from how they lived because it was so harmonious, and they did it for so many years without anything up. And then Europeans came and fucked everything up. Like our ecosystems got really messed up. So yeah, that's what I would like more people to know about.
That's really cool, and that's an awesome answer. Very special. I learned through Noah Simon's Hyperpop Origins docuseries that you were an early adapter of the hyperpop sound. How have you seen the scene and the perception of the music change?
Or it's like it changed a lot. Like I think hyperpop, when I first decided to label my music as hyperpop, was because I couldn't call it PC music.
Okay.
Because we were like I came to it after I moved to London in 2014, and I met a boy. We started dating, and he kind of knew all of them, and he was 23 and I was 18, and he already had a big problem with our age difference. And I was trying my best to not seem like a like embarrassing kid around him. And so I didn't want to just suddenly start calling myself PC Music because I wasn't really friends with them and they were all friends on a label together. That just felt like I would be this weird clinger wrong, like random Australian girl saying she's making the same music when she's not even on the label. So I
Right.
came to hyperpop um, while bushwalking with my mum and put the two words together. Definitely not the first person to put the two words together,
Mhm.
but I just thought I couldn't say PC music, so I started saying hyperpop in 2015. And that first hyperpop was proto PC music, like PC music made by people not signed to PC music. That's what it started as. And then when Charlie XCX started working with SOPHIE on the and the Vroom Vroom EP came out, then a lot of the people that were big Charlie fans were suddenly a part of this very small internet scene that hadn't really had any outside influence up until that point. There were a bunch of Australians early on in the day that were like kind of big influences on early hyperpop. Wave Racer, Basenji, Flume, it was in there too, like a little bit. A lot of bubblegum bass, I guess is what it was called. But I didn't like bubblegum bass. After Charlie's involvement, obviously that just blew everything up. And so you have all these other artists who are Charlie fans doing their version of it. The Sophie Splice uh, pack came out, and then just everywhere you're hearing these metallic snares, like just kind of thrown in a mix, and people calling it hyperpop. I'm like, ugh. Then I think another wave of hyperpop was when Aisha Erotica came on the scene, and that was much more kind of like that kind of Y2K MC bling brass kind of vibe. And then a lot of people riffed on that. And so then you've got that kind of more like hot pink PC, like hyper pop coming through at the same time. Then Gex come through and add what I think is undeniably like an American pop punk emo like influence. And then
Right.
obviously the ska influence that they've had come through and that too. And that's abrasive and a little less shiny, a little less chime based. Like it's not as ethereal as the A.G. Cook kind of stuff that was happening in the early days. And that takes it, and that's like this. Those two, I think, are concurrently second wave hyperpop. Then what we've got now is like this third wave of hyperpop that I would say is pioneered. Like you get a lot of like Ryan Hall breakants,
Right.
underscores would be in there.
Shout
And it's
out. I
like
got the
not,
album right
it's
up there.
yeah, I know, I see. And Jane Remover as well. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
those are kind of like, and I think
And
they
they
kind
all
of
have their
blend.
space. Yeah.
They all have their space, but it's this that's a third wave even beyond that,
Yeah.
which is influenced, yes, still by SOPHIE and probably still by PC music. I mean, underscores when I've seen her do her DJ sets, she's pulling out old PC music tracks like
Yeah.
from back in the day. And I'm like, oh my God, I love it. I'm like, it's like being back in the tiny little clubs I used to get to go to in 2015 in London with them all playing there, and there's like only 50 other people around. Like that's amazing. But they bring their own like influence that's I think undeniably from a more sort of like rock, punk, emo, like the music that you grew up listening to over there is and
Right.
so it brings that cultural context and that kind of influence into it. And that's so now to me separated from what people were making back in 2014. So that's,
Right.
yeah, I've been around, I've seen it all. I feel old.
Yeah, no, that's a really great answer. I've kind of just from the material I've watched, I obviously have not been tapped in as long as you have, but after learning about it, that seems like a really good way to describe the progression of the scene. And then even
Yeah.
also you kind of have there's just so many offshoots, like even the more trap centric stuff that a lot of people are calling digicore. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just really cool that it's hyperpop is already such a niche genre, and then further than that, there it breaks off into even more sects. So it's a lot of stuff to explore, which is probably why a lot of people like myself have got so far down the rabbit hole. Um,
It's also like it is so experimental and fun as well. So it's very
yeah,
easy for people to bring their own influence, and it champions. Like I loved PC music because when I first listened to it, it seemed to champion like bad MIDI sounds. So the sounds that you get, like stock sounds on your computer that are kind of crappy. And the early Dux Content album that was Danielle Hall and H.E. Cook that they released, that's like got a lot of that kind of sound in
right,
it. And it's very raw. It was very punk in the way that it's like you pick up an instrument and just play it however you want to play it. Like
right,
you don't need to have this like higher upper echelon of skill that is
yeah,
only acquired through institutions that are inherently like racist and sexist to be able to
yeah,
make it. And that that appealed to me so much because I'd always felt like a bit gate kept from music production growing up. And then suddenly I felt like I could do it because of what they were doing. And it inspires, I think, a lot of
yeah.
people to get involved with no experience whatsoever. And so then you just get a whole bunch of different music.
So that brings me to my next question. While we're talking about hyperpop, the next episode of this series will be a hyperpop songs bracket. What are some essential tracks that we have to put on the bracket, and what's your personal number one seed?
That's so hard because there's like so many different kinds. I think you have to have an early Sophie. I'm so torn because like Immaterial, I think is like the culmination of all of her work
Uh,
in one song. But I would sooner put Bip or Lemonade on there because, and I would, that would have to be the
yeah,
first track. Because I think one of the things amongst all of the waves of hyperpop that there's only one thread throughout them all sonically that I can really pick, and it's just the Sophie influence. Beautiful by A.G. Cook's going to be in there too. You have to have a Gex. it has, I think it has to be Money Machine.
Yeah.
And I think track 10 by Charlie has to be in there as well.
Next thing I wanted to say is the Never Meant cover is amazing.
Let's just pretend.
What made you choose that song in particular to cover? And are there any covers you would like to recommend to the viewers at home?
So I like growing up here and in my age bracket, like my music taste, like the indie sleaze revival hits home because that's just what my teenagehood was. Like I was a ratty skins loving kid. I listened, my favorite band were the Kooks and like Vampire Weekend and the Wombats. Like this was not, it was like indie rock all the way, Two Doors Cinema Club. Um, and so that's what I grew up listening to. I didn't even know what Midwest emo was until I met this guy over in the States, and we had a very ill-fated long distance relationship. Like, yeah, like the worst decision I think I've ever made in my life was going
But
into
the
that.
song came out of it, you know? So
That the song
yeah.
came out of it because he loves American football, and this is where I get a little because and he used to just play it in the car, like when you first date someone and they're trying to impress you, he used to play it. He
Yeah.
used to like be like, "What music do you like?" And then towards I went and visited him again, and the trip was just not a good idea. I went to visit him for a week at the end of 2021 too, and it was terrible. And in the car, like I could tell it was over because he stopped asking me what music I'd like to play, and he just played American football on a
Uh,
loop. And it was and like so depressing, like because you're like there listening to this music and it's like the end of a relationship. I tried so hard to make it work, and I was just like there,
right.
like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And when I came back to Sydney, it was like a kind of left things a bit weird, and then um a couple months later, it was like definitely the final nail in the coffin. It was done, and I started listening to the music because I think it was like more like a catharsis, like a like therapy almost. Like I'm trying to
Yeah.
get into his head and understand why things went the way that they went. And so I was listening to the music and like American football, like it's great breakup music because you can kind of wallow in it a little bit, and but it's calming. Like it just always like would make
Yeah.
my heartbeat sort of just still. Anyway, and then Breakouts did Hypochondriac, which I just love. That's one of my top five albums of all time now. Just like,
Wow.
and I found it so
Yeah.
inspirational. It's like it was the first time that I listened to someone's production in recent memory, kind of since the early PC music days, and went, I need to do something. I want
Right.
to figure out how they did this. I just found it so inspiring. The thought of doing Never Meant really it was not to spite the boy, unfortunately for him. But it was really because that riff is so famous,
Yeah.
and I could hear so much of that math rock, Midwest emo guitar work in the Breakouts album, and I just thought, like, what would it sound like if he covered this song? Well, he's probably not going to unless I write him a letter, but that's not going to go anywhere. So I should just try and have a crack at it
Right.
myself. And that's really how it came about. And I posted it on TikTok and it did well. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I should do more of this, and started to play around with more of that Midwest emo guitar sound with
Right.
hyperpop influence. And yeah, that's how it came about. The verse at the end, which is directly targeted at the boy, unfortunately, is just because I wrote a chorus and it sounded too similar to Never Meant for me to
Right.
make it into a song on its own. So I just tacked it onto the end there because I wanted to use it. Um, so then it just doesn't make it sound very spiteful. I'm always telling people not to date musicians because revenge is like a song, and then you
Right.
will have to listen to it all the time if it does well. So yeah, um,
That's
we're not the
awesome. So
best.
I can imagine that that was a really cathartic song to cover, based on that story.
It was, and then when people got angry at me, like a lot of men got really mad.
Oh
I think
man.
they don't like a. I don't know. Some guys are a bit fragile, and I don't know if they don't like a girl singing it or they don't like that I made it twinkly. Because that's the complaint I get a lot. I took the soul out of it, apparently. So like that was kind of fun. It was kind of like
Yeah,
fun to piss people off with a song that like in its essence like a cover kind of designed to take a song that was so much this other person who had hurt me's song and make it my own and like reclaim it in a weird
right.
way. I don't know. It was very cathartic. It was great.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next question, though. You kind of already touched on it a bit. Your music blends hyperpop and Midwest emo in a really cool way. Why do you think those genres in particular mesh together so well?
Someone said because I was like, oh my God, I love this sound. I spent most of last year just discovering people mainly through TikTok. TikTok to me is like kind of what SoundCloud used to be in the early days of hyperpop.
Hmm.
Where like I'm just getting recommended people kind of doing the same thing as me. And I'm listening to all that and like discovering and trying to find other bands that aren't American football, give myself some more like listening cred. Um, because I'm such a newbie to all of that sound. And I just loved it. I kept telling people who like other producers that I know who are in hyperpop, I'm like, I just love it. It's so good. Like I love the guitars. And they're like, yeah, because it's just basically hyperpop arpeggios, but on a guitar.
I
It
was
just
going to
sounds
say
like
that.
IDL.
True.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's so and they're so twinkly. It's such a clean sound and it's so pretty and it just you can just literally like for like where you would have a chime like that beautiful Hymera sort of like build up chime. I've just put a guitar in there instead because it works. It
Yeah, it
just that's
does.
where it blends. Um, and one thing that AG does a lot in the early Hannah Diamond songs is that when she's singing, he always has like a chime underscoring the vocal melody. And so when I've done the Midwest emo stuff, I put a chime underscoring the guitar riff, and you hear a lot of that in the Never Meant cover. And it just like does something, it just blends so nicely. It like underscores it with this
Right.
extra sort of sprinkle of a like slightly metallic sound that's still very resonant and it connects really well with the guitar string, that clean guitar sound. And I don't know if it would the Midwest emo would work as well for the more harsh, abrasive, kind of like in your face, like, yeah, let's go hyperpop stuff. But for my background of hyperpop, it does. It
Right.
works quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool answer. That's what I was. Yeah, like you said, it's almost a one-to-one comparison with the synth arpeggios. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just a cool substitute. My next question is, what kind of things do you think about when creating visuals to pair with your music?
Like my parents are both graphic designers, so I've grown up a lot around that, and then done it professionally here and there, to try and like help pay for music things. Um, it really varies on each
Hmm.
project. The mixtape I did because that was much more like straight up. I like that I'm like straight up hyperpop. Like, what does that mean? But it was much more like pop hyperpop, and very inspired by the early 2000s. So the visuals would just kind of reference that forgotten name because it's much more confessional and like personal, and the sounds are more organic than the visuals should reflect that. A lot of the hand drawn text, things that are really grainy or gritty, going off into the bush. Um, my manager and I did everything for that EP. It's just the two of us. And so he took a lot of the photos. We were going off into the middle of like the forest, the bush here, and taking videos, and like that DIY works really well with that sound because it's meant to have a bit of like earthiness and grit to it. So whenever I'm approaching visuals, it's just how am I going to complement the sound of this the best? Like what would this look like? And my dad grew up um in like he loves prog rock and all of the prog rock vinyl sleeves like he would just talk about how he
Oh,
would sit there listen to the whole record and they're huge
yeah,
records, they don't have track listing, it's just one big kind of opera of rock music
right.
going continuously. It's like symphonic honestly. And he would just look at Roger Dean did a lot of the Yes artwork, and he would just go, and it's like otherworldly, these beautiful illustrations, and you're suddenly like immersed in this sound. And I've always thought about trying to approach visuals in that way. Like if you were to sit on a floor and listen to this EP, what booklet would you want to accompany
Right.
it? What would put you in that world, and what does it look like? So yeah, I think that's how I approach it. And also iconography is really important as an artist. Like you need things that people can easily connect to. I had a birthday this weekend, and all of the presents that I got given were bunny themed because I'm just
Yeah.
obviously putting it out there how much I love them. And someone made a giant, I'm actually going to show it to you, this giant sort of demonic paper mache rabbit for my
Wow.
birthday.
What a thoughtful gift.
It's I know, it's so it's like, the thing is this is the kind of absolute bizarre but weirdly cute things that I love. Like it's
Yeah,
just, yeah,
I
so
actually had a question
um
written about the bunnies. I was going to ask what
oh yeah.
resonates with you so much about the rabbits. Why is that such a big part of your aesthetic now?
Um, I love rabbits. Like my parents, a day before I was born, my dad went off and bought this like little toy rabbit that I've had, and they thought I was going to be a boy, and wanted to name me Joe. And then I came out, I was a girl. So they named my toy rabbit Joe Bunny, and Joe Bunny's been like a constant character in my life. Like I think I was very deeply affected by Toy Story, and I can't throw any
Mm,
toys out, and they all have to like, I think they're going to come to life. I really, it's like,
right.
I know it's not true, but it's just there, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just think I always loved rabbits when I was a little girl. I had a pet rabbit who unfortunately died because my new dog got to her, Puff Puff,
Oh man.
which was a bit traumatic. But yeah, I think as a kid I thought they were cute. Now, as an adult, they're still freaking cute. They're like really cute, but they're very weird creatures. They get, because they're so cute, they get put as family pets, and they're not really meant to be family pets. They don't like
Right.
being touched that much. Like you shouldn't pick them up. They should come to you and then you can pick them up. They're very touchy about who they like. Um, they have they get very depressed if they don't have a friend to make love to every day. So you need to get them in pairs. And they're social amongst their own kind, but they're not really, but they're not like, yeah, they're not like a dog. They're not super affectionate in that way. I don't know why that resonates with me, but it does. And I've always had rabbits around, and I've always loved them. So I just incorporated it into the artist stuff because
Yeah.
it's always good to it's always good to have things that are really like your personality embedded
Right.
in the artistry, so you don't have to fake it all the time. Like it's exhausting.
All right. So God in Maine is one of my favorite tracks from the EP. Why did you make that song the title track? And can you expound on what that title means to you a little bit?
The song itself is about, it's like it's a breakup EP. It's about the same guy that loved Never Meant, and he grew up in Maine. And I think like during halfway through the relationship, he was too broke to come and visit me because he'd quit his job. He'd had like burnt out. He'd had enough. He quit his job, and so then he couldn't come and visit me in Australia. But he did go on a 2 month long road trip back to from LA, and drove to his home state and came back. And like I was trying to keep a lot of space of being understanding, but the strain of him being on the road and not being very communicative, like basically killed the long distance. I guess I wanted to ask like what was so special up in Maine that made you jeopardize
Okay.
what
Yeah.
you said was like the most important relationship that you'd had in your life.
So this is it as an epic outro. What things do you look to accomplish when making an outro to a project?
I love the outro to Band of Horses, The Funeral, and I just think I wanted to bring in that acoustic drum element, and it just made it sound so kind of like epic. And it's great because nowadays even as a bedroom producer, you can go and sound better, find someone who has the capability to record something, pay them like a little bit of money and get it done. And back in the day, you would have had to book out a studio. This is like it would have been $2,000 to get those drums into a track, and now it's like a fraction of the price. So yeah, it's a lot easier to do those things. I think with an outro, just like yeah, I just sweeping emotion. What is going to be like the closer, and like what's the thing that you could play at a gig as the closer? You know, it's good to think about albums and EPs as full projects that someone might listen to all the way through, even if it's less likely that people do these days. You should still, it's good to structure it that way. And anything that you think you can add in that will have that big emotional release is probably going to be helpful in making an outro sound really good. Yeah, I think so. I hope that answered that question. I don't know.
No, that's an awesome answer. Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a big like fan of listening to an entire project. I don't know. I just like that medium a lot more. I don't know. It's like you get more time with the artist, if that makes sense. But you did really well on that outro. I just want to say that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So my favorite track of yours is Miss Molly Cuddle, and I've shown it to a couple of my friends, and we've been kind of debating. The one line that stands out to us is there a hug at the bottom of a puddle? And we've been kind of debating what that could mean. And I was wondering if you feel comfortable clearing it up just so I could prove a point. But
yeah, so the lyric is there a hug at the bottom of a bottle, not puddle?
Yeah, no, my friend actually heard it like that once, but then I said a puddle, and we all thought it was puddle after that. But yeah, so he was right to start off with.
No, bottle, like hug at the bottom of a bottle, I guess it's like
yeah.
I mean it's just alcoholism.
Yeah, he thought it was like an allegory for JFK's assassination.
Oh, fun. That's cool.
Yeah, so he didn't explain or anything.
But an allegory, but it's like at the bottom of a puddle of blood. Is that the thought?
I would have to bring him on. I'm not really sure, but that's what he said.
That's fascinating. I want to know more.
Right.
I don't think I ever thought that anyone would think a lyric of mine was an allegory for JFK's assassination ever in my life. And it's pretty cool. I really like that.
Right. All right. So if you can hang tight real quick, I'm going to bring in somebody special for the next question. I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, totally. Okay, yeah.
Hey.
All right. So this is my mom. She had a question about Australia for you.
Hey.
Oh my
God,
God.
is that right?
Yeah, it is.
So I was asking Ethan that, like, here in Mississippi, when we ride down the road, we may see turkeys or deer or something like that. What do y'all see when you ride down the road over there?
It depends on where you are. So the further south you get kangaroos for sure. The problem is sometimes they're not necessarily alive. So we have like a lot of roadkill. But we there's like there's something like 20. I think we are outnumbered by kangaroos. So people are outnumbered by kangaroos in Australia. So we see a lot of bush turkeys where I am in Sydney. They look kind of like your regular turkey, but a little bit scroungier.
Yeah.
I've seen lizards on the road. We have up the coast when we drive, we have koala crossings across some of the highways. And they're just like a metal bridge so that they can climb across rather than going along the road. So it helps protect them.
Yes.
And a lot of birds.
Yeah, yeah. So Ethan was telling me, no, they don't see koalas, but you do.
Yeah, they're very rare.
I never said you didn't. I never said you didn't.
They're very rare. But I've seen one in the wild before.
Yeah.
And we were driving, and there's a koala sanctuary next to this road. and a whole bunch of people had parked and were looking, so we thought, oh, we better suss it out, and it's because there was a big koala on the tree there.
Yeah. So how old are you, Holiday?
I'm 28. I had my birthday 2 days ago.
Wow, well, happy birthday. You are just beautiful.
Thank you.
You just look so happy. You're just so smiley and happy.
Thank you so much. You're beautiful. You look very smiley and happy too.
I usually am. Yeah, I usually am.
Yeah, good.
They say I can get a little sometimes.
Oh. The best of us do, though. I definitely have a side to me.
Okay, well, I'm going to let Ethan have his phone back before he kicks me out. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you too.
You too. Bye-bye.
So that was my mom.
Your mom is so sweet. That's
right?
very, very nice.
Right? Yeah, I thought she told me that I should ask you that question, and I said, why don't you ask it? And so yeah,
so nice.
She was down.
But yeah, so sweet.
And to end it off, I ask everybody just some artists you would like to shout out, maybe underground. Put the audience on to some cool artists.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh, now my brain's frazzling because I want to put on Australian artists, and like the Australian girls. I mean, like Nina Geraci's probably, one of my favorite artists out of Australia, doing like electronic pop, electronic music. She's really sick. And my friend who mixed and mastered my entire EP, Gout, is Antonia. She's part of a band called Gouchy, which is Gauci. They're kind of doing like their own sort of grungy pop thing at the moment. They're about to release their mixtape soon. They're very sick. She's got some guitars with like electronic beats and things. It's really cool. And Bygone, I'll shout out them as well because they were super helpful when I was making the EP. They're making a kind of similar thing to like the Glitch West emo, hyper emo kind of stuff, and I really like what they're making.
Awesome. Yeah, super cool. I'll have to check them out. Maybe I can get you to send
I'll
me
link
their
them
names.
all to you. Yeah, I will.
Awesome. Yeah, but it's been awesome to have you on. I appreciate you coming on the show. Yeah, good luck in your future endeavors, for sure.
Thank you so much for having me and for all your questions and for letting me yap for so long as well. Oh, yeah. But thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you all for watching at home. Peace.